All right, so that's good. Yeah, that's kind of. I wanted to get some better lighting, so I figured that might work. Cool. All right, so then. Sorry. Oh, no worries. What I'll do then is I'll share, and I'll just be here ready to go. So whenever you want, you can just call me up. Uh, got it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Just rock either way. Totally. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Looking forward to it. No. No, that's it. I'd like to make sure I could get on, and this was going to be cool. So thumbs up. I'll see you soon. Definitely.
Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday to all of you who are watching. If you haven't been here before and you don't know me, my name is Cassandra Kaczor, and I'm a singer, songwriter, pianist, composer here in Chicago, Illinois, and I do this show, Songwriter Sunday, every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Time. How it works is I play a couple of songs to get you all settled in, and then I bring on an awesome guest to talk about their experience with songwriting, art, and life. And today in particular, I'm so very excited because I have my alderman here in the 40th Ward, Alderman Vasquez, coming on at 2:15 Central Time to talk about hip hop, community, public service, and whatever else comes up in the conversation. It should be pretty awesome. Also, if you haven't watched before, this is an interactive show. So wherever you're watching, if it's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube, you're super welcome to throw some comments in. They will show up live on camera, and I would love to field some questions to the alderman today about anything that comes up or anything that's on your minds. So please don't feel shy at all about that. So, like I said, get y'all warmed up with a couple tunes. I am the opener every week so that y'all can share the videos and tell your friends. Hey Norm, hey Charlotte, thank you so much for signing on. My first song today, I've been beating to a pulp lately. I promise I'll retire it soon, but I just released this on Bandcamp, so I gotta shamelessly share it for 1 or 2 more weeks. This is called Animal. Walking through the tall grass, touching the blades with my fingertips, searching for a nightcap where the moonlight hits the air and the air hits my lips. In the darkness, I'm an animal amongst the animals for the first time. A piercing cry is inquiring what I am doing out here. I laugh aloud, a fitting response as I wander into a midnight clear. In the darkness, I'm an animal amongst the animals for the first time. Be you man or be you beast, you better be afraid of me. 'Cause I left my pain and my excuses under my pillow. No, I'm not afraid to die. That's why I walk alone at night. 'Cause what was taken from me can't be retrieved. So if you wanna fight, I'll be here naked, smiling in plain sight. The undergrowth smells like freedom and sex and health and hope. I wanna rest in its gentle caresses, but its thorny companions are known to choke. A rattle in the distance warns of a painful death unless I run and hide. But the wind kisses my hips, lifts me up, and I'm an animal amongst the animals for the first time. Be you man or be you beast, you better be afraid of me. 'Cause I left my pain and my excuses under my pillow. No, I'm not afraid to die. That's why I walk alone at night. 'Cause what was taken from me can't be retrieved. If you wanna fight, I'll be here naked, smiling in plain sight. sounds strange. You walked me to the edge of insane. And as the years go by, the years go by, the years go by, it's a pleasure to meet you face to face. Be you man or be you beast, you better be afraid of me. 'Cause I left my pain and my excuses under my pillow. No, I'm not afraid to die. That's why I walk alone at night. 'Cause what was taken from me can't be retrieved. So if you wanna fight, I'll be here naked, smiling in plain sight. Yeah. It's my new single, Animal. You can find it on all the streaming platforms and Bandcamp. With a full band, it sounds way cooler in that respect, but that's that tune. I'm very proud of it, and it's very close to my heart. But you know what's cooler than that is that Alderman Vasquez is going to be on the screen in just under 10 minutes. So soon, y'all. So please grab your Sunday afternoon glass of sparkling whatever that you do, sparkling water, coffee if for you caffeine people. I just can't do it, but you can. And get ready. This is going to be an awesome interview. And again, feel free. You can ask questions to the alderman as well. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to be super cool. All right, 2:15. We're almost there. My next tune I haven't played in a while because I don't like to play it, and I hope I don't have to play it much longer. But we did come up on the year kind of marker of the pandemic, and I wrote this right after the shutdowns. So I'm just going to wear it out so we don't have to do it anymore. Here we go. Called Anyway. When it all started, people cried out, "What will we do?" and filled their calendars with phone calls, mourned the cancellations of their music festivals, and loaded up their guns outside the Capitol. Now we've all been asleep for nearly a year, and kids don't know what happened to their playmates. The U.S. stomps its boots and binges on fake news, while the world waits, and I'm not holding my breath for a better day. Turns out I don't really have much nice to say, 'cause there are miles and miles of space and nowhere to go. That's fine. I don't want to see anyone anyway. No. Now I spend my time counting my pennies and crossing off the numbers on the wall. The greatest place on earth lets its people die, while sad housewives take their children to the mall. And I'm not holding my breath for a better day. Turns out I don't really have much nice to say, 'cause there are miles and miles of space with nowhere to go. That's fine. I don't want to see anyone anyway. And this is not a joke. This is not a social media post. And though some of you think it is, this is not a TV show. This is me at home alone, trying to understand why some days I wanna die and other days I don't, 'cause I'm not holding my breath for a better day. Turns out I don't really have much nice to say, 'cause there are miles and miles of space and nowhere to go. That's fine, I don't wanna see anyone anyway. Yeah, gonna retire that one hopefully sooner rather than later, but that's called Anyway, and I wrote it about a year ago, maybe a little less, but all right, we have to get Alderman Vasquez up here at 2:15, so I'm gonna jump right into my last song so we can get to the interview, which is gonna be so awesome. This last tune is about kind of our dependence culturally on social media. Thank you, Katie. It is not like judgy towards anybody. It is just all of us. This is all of us. So this is called Celebrity, and then we're hitting the interview, y'all. I'm on a rooftop in my favorite onesie, the one that makes my butt look nice. You're at home, chilling in sweatpants, browsing the internet. My girls are all around me, we're all sipping mimosas, looking cute but we'll be thinner yet. Gotta hit the angles, pick a perfect filter, not right, not right. That's it, look at me and my celebrity life. While you're flipping through your phone, I baked a batch of scones, 'cause I'm a perfect wife. Look at me and my celebrity style. If I use enough emojis, I can fool you for a while. Look at me. Today I'm gonna show you how to draw a simple wingtip. Consider it a gift from me. You're inherently imperfect, your eyelashes are too short, so be sure to subscribe. Now I look like Kim and Chloe, I did it in 2 minutes. Hashtag summer vibes. Gotta hit the angles, pick a perfect filter, not right, not right. That's it, look at me and my celebrity life. While you're flipping through your phone, I framed up all these photos, 'cause I'm a perfect wife. Look at me and my celebrity style. If I use enough emojis, I can fool you for a while. Look at me. Me. I need more hearts, I need more compliments. I need that guy at work to be impressed. My life's a movie I was born to direct. Mine is a story no one should forget. Look at me and my celebrity life. While you're flipping through your phone, I joined a weight loss program, 'cause I'm a perfect wife. Look at me with my celebrity style. If I use enough emojis, I can fool you for a while. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. That tune is called Celebrity. It will be on an album at some point. But more importantly, it's time for me to do the awkward shuffle and then the very exciting Skype dance as we get Alderman Andre Vasquez on screen. He's the alderman of the 40th Ward here in Chicago and has a lot to say about hip-hop, community, social justice, social servitude. So let's get him up here ASAP, y'all. And I hope you all came prepared with questions and thoughts and insights, because he is taking questions today, which is super exciting. So let's go ahead, get this going, y'all. Boom. Skype dance. All right, we've done it. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. It's really, it's not so awkward of a shuffle and a good little Skype dance. So we're worked out pretty well.
You know, I don't. Someday when I'm a great famous interviewer, I'll have a team of people doing this for me. But for now, it happens in my bedroom. So, how are you on this beautiful Sunday afternoon?
I mean, I've been indoors doing a lot of meetings, but it was really cool. Even catching the beginning of this, like watching. I really like the wordplay on the songs, so it brought up my spirit. So I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. So I know a lot of folks are excited to see this. I have a lot of questions for you. So let's hop right in here. So
Yes.
you're here as a public servant these days, kind of on this show and also in the world. Um, but you're also a member of the hip hop community, and you have a history and a past with that. So, what brought you to run for alderman and to win in 2019?
Yeah, I mean, I never. This was never on the career path or anything I had thought about doing growing up. But I think I got inspired a lot by Bernie Sanders in 2015, but also the fact that I met my wife and became a parent, and thinking about like what I could do to make sure my kids had a good foundation the way my parents did for me and like everything that we went through. And that just led to me community organizing and yeah, got to the point where we ran a race and ran against somebody who'd been here for 36 years, raised about $1.5 million against us. But I think ultimately the neighbors just wanted to kind of have government where they have more of a say, and we've been able to bring that. So it's been really cool being here.
Oh, definitely. I'm so happy to hear that as well. On my end. Oop, adjustment. Um, and along with of course, the career move to think about your family and everything too. I mean, you could have probably gotten into any area of work, and then is there a love for this neighborhood or a love for Chicago or something else that's behind that move as well?
It's definitely like a love for Chicago. Like I think every time when I was walking around doing like the stump speeches and whatnot, I'd start off by saying like that I'm a product of the city, and that means a lot to a lot of people, right? There's a lot of great things that come with Chicago, and there's a lot of challenges as well. And so I think a little bit of all of it. Like I'm a city kid at heart. I grew up here through hip hop music in Chicago, and there's a lot of love and a feeling of needing to give back and making sure that like future generations get to enjoy Chicago the way like we did growing up.
Absolutely. No, that's beautiful. So let's backpedal then
Yeah.
to, if we may, to your days as a rapper, your days really spending time in the community. You recently posted a really cool group of pictures of yourself performing, kind of out with friends at like in the scene at the clubs. So,
Hmm.
what inspired your love of words and your love of this particular genre?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I was a kid, I was a kid who was writing poetry or writing short stories, and I think there's a innately in many of us this want to express what's going on here, right? And for me, like I said, started writing poetry, but the thing that made me start to become more social as a person, because I was pretty awkward growing up.
Mm,
High school was meeting all the other hip hop kids and like learning that like, oh, I can make words rhyme and do this like improvisational technique and put together stream of thought. And being able to do so to the point that I got attention for it.
mm.
Um, I think a lot of folks, you start out feeling like alone in the world, and then you get a little bit of attention because of something you do, and it just kind of like just got me more excited about trying to find different ways to write songs, to be able to perform on a stage, and just it gave me a lot of confidence in a time where I don't think that I may have had it before.
Awesome, awesome. I think, and I know there are some musicians here watching today too. I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of maybe awkwardness or not quite fitting in and turning to music almost for me like my a friend is how I always saw music. Um,
Yeah, it's like a lifeline, and also I think now I'm gonna be 42 in May. It's also like this really cool way to timestamp things.
hmm.
Like there's just so many memories that tie into music and songs that for me it's like I just appreciate being able to like tap into like the 90s based on like what those hits were for me. So it's really cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to as we get into more of like the cultural conversation, I do want to make the differentiation and correct me if I'm wrong. But for those who don't know, rap is a genre, hip hop is a culture, right? Or a
Yeah.
community.
A- a- yes, that's actually perfectly put, right? The hip hop culture encompasses not only rap music but also DJing, graph writing. You've got your break dancers. You've got people who do marketing, entrepreneur. Like it is a whole culture when you think about hip hop, with rap being like a form of expression within that larger culture. 100%.
Definitely, because I do hear, as we touched base yesterday, I'm a bit of a nerd in many ways, and so for I would say you can probably hear that same siren.
Yep.
I would say also, as I got more and more into hip hop culture and rap music, I only learned about the distinction 5 or 6 years ago. So I think, and then I've heard many people confuse the two terms, or maybe not confuse them, but conflate them or something.
Yeah.
So I think in the context of this conversation, it's good to differentiate too.
Yeah, like I think the thing that KRS-One, who's like one of the hip hop legends, the way he'd always put it is, rap is something you do, hip hop is something you live,
Mm.
right? And it kind of, for me, it allows like good framing. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that quote. So can you get a little bit further here, in your opinion, about the cultural aspects and why they're important to community building, especially inclusive community building? So that could be two separate points, or if you want to work them together. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I'll even throw in a little dash of political analysis there, right? Because like some folks may know I'm a democratic socialist, and like if you would have asked me what that meant 10 years ago, I couldn't tell you. But hip hop music and hip hop culture really taught me that. So for a little bit of background, like hip hop culture began, you've got disco, you've got funk, you've got blues, and all these other like black forms of music that are American music, right? And what occurred in New York, and this is like late 70s, early 80s, is that the school system, due to austerity, had to get rid of its music program.
Mm.
So you had this great program for kids in New York where they can learn instruments and play, and then that got stripped away. And so what happened is what often happens: people get resourceful and make something out of nothing, which is like a hip hop like staple as well, where you would take your parents, records, or you'd find a can of spray paint and find different ways to express yourself through art. So this became, not just art forms, but people would meet on a regular basis at their local park and have park jams. And that developed into this whole subculture of who the DJs are, who the MCs are going to be that are going to be introducing the DJ and telling stories, and the break dancers. And it just happened over time, like organically. And now we're what, 40 years later? And hip hop is this thing that we all kind of know and has like become very much part of the mainstream. So it's all those things are what created the culture in Chicago. It was us looking at New York going like, wow, that's really dope. Like, how can we, what's our version of that? And then finding those groups here to kind of grow what we had. So yeah, it's really cool to learn from.
So then I didn't plan these next two questions, but they just popped up, so I hope I remember both. Um, why do you think in a sea of musical genres, right? And
Yeah.
especially generational opinions on what are acceptable genres. I'm thinking about rock and roll, I'm thinking about disco, and I think for at least where I grew up, like rap music was the next like we got to be careful about that, right?
Yeah.
Um, so what do you think made it mainstream? Was it that kind of honest communal expression, or what do you think?
Yeah. I think it's, cool. I mean, that's a deep question, right? Because if you see it with every genre, that like it starts out with being outside of the norm because people who don't feel part of a community come up with their own art and flavor and everything. And then somebody in the larger community like gets a peek and goes like, oh, that's something I could like, I want to get a handle on. And I think the part that's challenging is once somebody figures out a way they can monetize it, they
Mm-hmm.
then try to figure out a way to monetize it, right? And that's what leads from Chuck Berry to Elvis Presley,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like now you're like, oh, this is an artist that your mainstream can relate to with the same music. Um, I think in hip hop, it wasn't. There are racial components, right? You've got artists like Eminem that I think clearly made things mainstream, but it was mainstream before then.
Yeah.
Where like NWA, like there's groups that really got cut messages across, and I think that's important too because when you think about like Public Enemy, Nas, some of those groups that talked about the inner city struggle,
Mm-hmm.
those stories were compelling enough that they brought in mainstream to pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. I've seen a few interviews of rappers back in the '90s, kind of on talk shows, with hosts saying things like, "This music is just so dangerous to our children," and they're like, "Well, this is our life, and what do you think about our children? And aren't they important?" And
Yeah, I mean that's just crazy, right? Like NWA, especially I always think about is like those are like cries for help in those records of like this is what the environment is that we're living in.
mm,
And you know, to be completely fair, uh, because there was a lot you're coming from those environments where there's a lot of not exposure to everything else either. There was like homophobia, misogyny, and like a lot of the language as well. And so sometimes it's challenging to parse through each to go, look, this is clearly relevant and a cry for help. And there are things that also are toxic, and trying to reconcile the two can be challenging.
absolutely.
But yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just mean like that's why it's not as clear cut as being like, oh, it's dangerous because it's from people of color. It's like it's also dangerous because there are very valid concerns. So I think that made it really challenging to kind of figure out.
Yeah. I'm, I have a follow up question to that before I get to my next one, especially regarding
Yeah.
Eminem. Um, I remember coming uh, coming across kind of his like middle period albums, and specifically the song "White America." I don't know if you're familiar, but
Yep.
it's almost like a clap back though at the people who were kind of in those interviews going, "Oh, but the danger." He's like,
Oh
I
yeah.
could be one of your kids. That's part of the hook, right? White America, I could be one of your kids." Um,
Yeah, I think that's the thing why Eminem gets so much credit is because he's very self aware of the privilege he has within that genre,
mm.
and he's willing to call that out and be very candid about it. So I think, yeah, that's a really dope song.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, listen to that one on repeat back in high school. So my follow up to the original question was regarding your comment about growing up in Chicago and watching kind of the New York hip hop scene unfold, going, we want to do that. Um, Kind of what was your experience getting into hip hop in Chicago, and who were you listening to, like in terms of Chicago rap, Chicago hip hop? Let's talk local for a second.
Yeah, for sure. There was definitely like wanting to be like New York and like wanting to make sure that we got our street credibility and we got credibility as artists. So I think in Chicago, for me, it was battling. Like I coming up as a young kid, all the older heads would be like, "Oh, you just got here. Like if you want to earn any kind of respect, like you've got to go battle and get your name up." So I would go to like Navy Pier, the Point. You end up going to all sides of town because you want the whole city to recognize you. So that allowed me a lot of exposure to different communities, different cultures, different dynamics, different social dynamics, economic ones that in general kind of helped fuel me because I'm just absorbing stuff. I'm like a sponge going out there,
Mm.
right? And when it came to artists, I think Common back then, Common Sense was kind of like the name he went
Mm-hmm.
by, was one of the first ones that felt very Chicago.
Mm.
Like the records are Chicago, the accent is Chicagoan, right? It's very South Side Chicago and West Side. Um, I think there's Juice, Rhyme Fest, Twista, of course,
Uh-huh.
that just automatically like you see. But then there's also like scores of just unnamed underground artists that like you'd see each other and just be like, I gotta beat him because he's dope or like she's amazing. That just kind of kept fueling us to keep getting better.
Yeah. And in terms of like again and I don't know you know, because I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Cleveland again, more of like a folk music, classical music family. Um, but as I've learned more and more about hip hop, you know, obviously you have New York, right? You've got East Coast, and then you've got West Coast, and then you've got the dirty South, and then, you know, you've got
Yeah.
Miami, you know, and then I I don't think too much has really, at least, and please correct me if I'm wrong, not too much has really been discussed in terms of like the flavor and the style and aesthetic of Midwestern or Chicago hip hop, and we obviously have a rich scene here even now.
Yeah, no, I think that's very well put because we definitely had a chip on our shoulder of like, that's what it is, right? It's this hip hop ethos of like, yo, you got to know you got to know who I am. I'm in the place to be, right? Um, it was very much like your East Coast, you knew the West Coast then asserted itself and clearly had a distinct sound. Um, Down South did as well. I think the Midwest ends up being a little bit of a like a really a melting pot of genres because you got a little bit of Down South, like you mentioned Ohio, that's Bone Thugs
Mm-hmm.
and Harmony land, right?
Yep.
And then you've got Twister, so it's very like there's a similar drawl there. And then
Hmm.
there's like the Chicago folks who want to sound East Coast.
Hmm.
So I think where we started asserting ourselves as a sound is when Common really starts getting out there. Then you got like I think Kanye is probably the next Twisters one, and then Kanye really kind of started securing a sound that you heard everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Chance. So I think you're getting more of that refinement. But it's hard because the Midwest takes a little bit from everywhere because all the different communities are separate too here in Chicago.
Yes. And I think, yeah, what you're saying, kind of this like melting of aesthetic. And I'm just purely curious. So if you want to move on from this, we can at any
No,
time.
this is dope.
um,
I appreciate it.
okay,
Yeah.
good, good. Because I've thought, I'm a huge Kanye West fan of the music, maybe not the person as much these days, but of the music, I have nothing but respect after, you know, I spent a master's in music trying to learn what he taught himself, you know, in terms of electronic music and production and stuff.
Yep.
That's I have so much respect for that, even alone.
Right.
And as a somebody with a composition degree, I listened. I remember especially Yeezus. I was like, this is
Hmm.
composition. This is nothing short of like these pieces of paper in my hand. Um, but
Yeah.
I've thought a lot about this with him too because some of his stuff and Chance as well. And Common as well. It has kind of almost a laid back Southern thing, but then they sometimes
Yeah.
start chopping, and then sometimes I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to put my finger on. There has to be something emblematic of the Chicago sound because there's so much pride here with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think that's the part that I remember thinking through that because Chicago is so segregated, so is its music. Even its hip hop music is kind of like if I were to say drill music,
Mm-hmm.
right? Chief Keef and all that. That's you always know it's like a Southwest side feel.
Hmm.
It So I think you're right. I think the one commonality that I've seen across, and it's hard to really articulate musically, but it's like it's this feeling of soul and struggle across all of it.
Hmm.
That that Chicago is just a blues soul kind of town, like Blues Brothers and all of it. That there's some kind of theme that cuts across, and
Yeah.
everybody in Chicago's got to like scrap and struggle to figure out how to get to where they got to get. And this balance of like feeling trapped in a Chicago winter, but ready to party in a Chicago summer. Like all those things are kind of mixed into a lot of the music across the board, but it's hard to like figure out the distinct sound.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder too. This is just coming up into my head as we're talking, thinking about that lineage of Common, Kanye, Chance, and I would also include No Name in that kind of new school. Um,
Yep.
there's a lot of church too, and I wonder is that
Yeah.
I hear that more in this music than East Coast or West Coast, and maybe that's my lack of listening, but maybe there's something to
No,
like the Midwestern, yeah.
that's real. Like there's definitely, and I think that's part of what when I say soul, I think of that as well, like gospel. There's like a lot of feel um that I don't hear as clearly in like other areas. I think Chicago does definitely have that. Chance clearly has that, right? As does Kanye. So I do think that's like if you take Kanye back to like No ID, who used to do production for Common, there's a lot of that jazz and soul as well. I think Lupe Fiasco, like coming out stuff, also had that feel. So I do think that's something that's very Chicago and distinct in that regard.
Yeah, cool. Woo,
Yeah.
this is fun.
Yeah.
So let's start to, um, oh yeah, my friend Katie says love the trapped in a Chicago winter sound type thing that you said
Yeah.
too.
I mean, what else are you gonna do when you're stuck at home and it's 10 feet out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, so let's kind of like find the middle ground here in terms of, yesterday you said rap is such a powerful medium because it gives voice to the expressionless, right?
Hmm.
And so, in that, again, the hip hop community framework as well, um, how do you feel like we can welcome more of that hip hop community into kind of our people who don't really listen to that type of thing?
Yeah, I think that's a challenging one because I feel like hip hop's already kind of been very pervasive in that direction,
Mm.
right? I think it's part of what I kind of think through is like, how do you create a hip hop space that is that kind of like inclusive across the board, and that you can talk as hip hop people about like larger community issues and kind of move in that direction, right? I think I view it more as like having these larger culture and hip hop meet, right? And
Yeah,
hip hop's already done like everyone knows, right? You look at the Grammys and everything or everything else,
sure.
but it's about how we create the spaces for hip hop folks who are now in their 30s and 40s and can have conversations about community and like create that. I think it's necessary. I think it allows us to be able to articulate more than just like what a song can say,
Mm-hmm.
and really helps build bridges between communities and like artists.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And in this modern picture, because this is something I also struggle with as a fan, in this modern picture of rap music and everything, where do women and LGBTQ people fit in your opinion? Do they? Is there space?
Yeah, I think it should be front and center, right? Like I think here's something that I learned, and unfortunately I learned through ignorance to get to that learning, right? Is that what it appeared to me is that hip hop, or some of the communities in hip hop, like people of color, feel outsiders to the larger community,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
Like then you create this subculture of like, here's what our community is, and then there's this reflexive impulse to want to say, well, this is ours, so you can't be a part of this,
Mm-hmm.
and you recreate the same cycle that causes outliers like you felt when you started. So I think for us, it has to be about very consciously, and that's what I want to work on, creating the kind of space where we go, hey, we created hip hop because we wanted to feel included in our own thing. And in order for us to really live that, we have to be inclusive as well and make sure we bring in all those different voices, and having artists that are different identities, um, and be dope, which there are. But I think that that's the part of the hip hop thing that's very critical and very battle based, is people will give you the side eye because you have to be dope for them to like hear it all.
Mm.
But there's enough really dope quality artists that are working out there. Like Chicago's got Psalm One, you've got Ants 13, you've got a lot of artists that are out there that really articulate that voice and sound, and we're hearing more of it, right? Like Little Nas X. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's happening. It's about being able to, as a community, also be like, that is dope. Let's bring it all in and talk about it, because that's how we get stronger as a people in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw you have a list of your favorite MCs. I checked that out as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lauren Hill coming in at an honorable mention. Do you have maybe a couple of favorite women MCs besides Lauren, or
Yeah, I mean, there's tons. MC Light's dope. Cardi
mm,
B's dope.
she is?
Cardi B is phenomenal. Eve is dope. Um, there's Invincible out of Michigan, who's really ill.
Oh,
There's Apani B Fly MC from New York. There's Heroin. Like that's what I mean. There's a ton, and I think uh, the underground is a different sound than what you hear mainstream as well, because the underground stuff can tend to be a lot more lyrically dense.
mm,
And like for me, that's awesome. Like I love to watch how people put these words together like a puzzle. But those aren't always the hits. So I think being able to create a space for that as well is important.
Definitely, and there's a whole like movement of socially conscious hip hop right now. Tobin Nguigwe comes to mind. No Name, Chica. I don't know if you're hip to Chica yet, but she's
Oh,
awesome.
somebody put me on. I haven't heard her yet, but somebody mentioned it, so I got to get my list up too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Jennifer says Mecca the Ladybug. I'm not familiar, but I'm definitely checking that out. Are you familiar?
Oh wait, is that Ladybug from Diggable Planets?
Jennifer,
I
we
don't know if they would say that, but it might be. Yeah, that'd be real. Yep.
cool, cool. I have some homework to do here too. And then
Yeah.
Charlotte says in response to, because there's a delay on the chat too. She
Sure.
says, the music draws us together. We all feel the oppression of a society that rewards wealth. So this might actually be a great segue into kind of some of your philosophies and your desires for our community in regard to hip hop, or not, or both. Up to you.
Yeah. No, and I think that comment to me really inspired some because you were mentioning like how hip hop became mainstream, and like I think that's the part that like it's bittersweet, but capitalism caused a lot of it, right? Like you go from underground hip hop culture to Puff Daddy, all of a sudden figuring out, hey, if I hang around Biggie Smalls and we put some of these R&B records and make these dance friendly cuts, like we can make a lot of money, right? And then and at the same time, you've got NWA and the West Coast and all that, and then you've got, let's be real, white executives who are like, we can monetize this. So who else has a gang? Who else is a gangbanger that can rap? Let's make those groups. And it's a bit of a cookie cutter approach, but it's what capitalism does, and that helped get things out. So I feel a little bit bittersweet because I think it takes some of the culture out, right? It's like the difference between a home cooked meal and like McDonald's. So yeah, I think as it relates to the political, it absolutely is that I think we all go through different oppression based on our identities, and hip hop provides an opportunity to be able to talk to that and speak truth to it that I don't think I see often enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even didn't NWA have a kind of a white manager for a minute as well?
Jerry Heller.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry. So yeah, if you watch, I forgot the name of the movie, right? The NWA movie that they did with Dre, and like there's I forget the name of it right now.
Oh, Straight Outta Compton.
But yeah. But they go through the whole story there, how like Eazy-E was like really this entrepreneur who was selling stuff out of his truck or trunk, but then he meets Jerry Heller. They sign a deal. It becomes a record label, and it's a story you hear often about record labels and artists where you sign the deal, you sign away more than you signed away, and then it becomes very challenging later to kind of assert yourself and own your own masters.
Yeah, I saw Kanye West was really starting to get outspoken about that as well for a while.
Yep.
Even empowering with trying to empower other artists too.
Yeah, but and it like because you were mentioning also the political thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's also how I learned a lot of my political like beginnings, right? Like very much Public Enemy, Gangstar, like KRS-One. They all talked about what it means to be an outsider in a community, how you come together as a community, and how you build power to be able to speak truth to the status quo. That I had no idea these were political ideas up until the point that I started organizing later, and it was like, why does this 75-year-old dude from Vermont sound like a hip hop record? Like, why are they saying the same things that help me validate my worldview, which was really cool.
Yeah, actually, I wrote down what you said yesterday that, we're talking about it, but I just want to read the exact, the exact thing you said. It said, being part of the hip hop community made you a socialist before you knew what it meant. So
yeah,
you already touched on, I guess, the why, unless there's anything else about that you kind of want to get into.
Well, I think that's something that I'm kind of struggling with a little right now because, like, I meet a lot of folks who are socialists because they learned it through like academic means, right? They read Marx in college, or they studied Lenin, or so they come at it from that mindset, which I absolutely have respect for because there's a lot of context and history. But where I come from, it is a very different, like living in this struggle and thinking that the only way out was coming together and working as a group and uniting. That I think both sides can learn from each other, but right now we don't have that yet. We still have like a lot of people are comfortable in organizing spaces, but you don't see a lot of hip hop people there because they feel intimidated to be in that kind of space. So I'm trying to work on that.
Yeah, and I wanna talk about spaces too, because that's something we brought up yesterday. But I want to say
Mhm.
too, in regard to what you've said regarding socialism and kind of finding out over time what that meant. I know my father-in-law is watching right now, and he was a theory professor for many years, doctorate, and we had a conversation. Um, I don't know, it was over the summer, last summer, so that was a very like important and intense time, and we were both sitting there
Mhm.
on the phone going like, we've just become radicalized. Like whatever anybody on the right wanted to convince us of, we just went way more far left than I ever, I'm from Ohio, we sit purple. And after this
Right.
past year, I'm like, well, let's get weird. Let's get super liberal. I'm all about it. So,
Yeah, no, there's definitely something to that where like I said, I think because of my life and now as a representative and even before just being exposed, even to work in retail, to so many different views and perspectives on life, right? I think, if you would have talked to me like 20 years ago when I was like this, like full of angst, angry person who felt lost in a community, I don't think that I would have been as understanding. Now I just recognize like everyone goes through their own experience and some people don't feel what other people have gone through. And
mm-hmm,
I think we definitely had a moment this past year where people saw how real it is for everybody because it got that bad across the board
mm-hmm.
that I think, it allowed for some conversations that I think were necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get to spaces, I just want to remind people watching, if you have a question about any of this stuff, you're welcome to drop it in the chat or comments or thoughts or feedback. We have time to field a couple questions if somebody besides me has a better one. Um, so let's talk about spaces too. We talked about yesterday. We talked about kind of the inclusive, kind of mental, emotional space, and then the inclusive physical space too. So um, I know that you started an initiative to create an arts corridor here in our neighborhood. What what was the impetus for that, and how did that get started? And what are your hopes for it as it develops?
Yeah, no, really, thank you for asking that. So on Lincoln between Western and Catalpa, I think when I was running, I just saw that there was an opportunity for development there. That there's a lot of empty storefronts. Some of it felt real like 70s and 80s, and kind of hadn't caught up to the rest of things going on. All the motels. Um, at first, I looked at it from that lens, like how do you reinvigorate a space? And then I think because I'm an artist, that's what spoke to me first. That like we don't have tons to invest and like create these like amazing programs, but sometimes you just look at what you have, and if you've got an artist and you can like direct some funding towards that, you can help beautify a space and reimagine what public space can look like. And so part of what we're doing, we're calling the area Lincoln Ave North,
Mm,
and then calling the arts district Lana the Lincoln Avenue North Arts District.
okay.
um, it's really just being able to articulate and make the place nicer and add more color to it, add more flavor, have people be able to perform in public spaces, and then creating the kind of storefronts that people can also live in. So you
Mm,
still have the affordability and having affordable housing. Because I grew up in Wicker Park here in Chicago, and growing up, I saw them beautify Wicker Park. I saw the property values rise before I understood any of it, and just knew that our family got displaced and would get displaced from different neighborhoods every 2 years. So for me, I'm very mindful of one, making sure the development is there, that you're able to integrate arts, but that you're also doing everything you can to prevent the displacement of people
mm.
once you invest in an area that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we touched on yesterday that it's something I'd really love for everybody else to hear you kind of begin to address. There is, I don't know, I'm trying to say this the right way. There's a careful balance to be struck between creating a community that has more art and access to arts, and then again those rising prices. And is there a way to mitigate, like if we get a Starbucks on every corner, right? Something's going to go on with the rent. But at the same time,
Yep.
I think uh, for me as an artist, and perhaps you as well, I don't want a Starbucks in every corner. I want, as we were talking about, I want a mural. I want like an open mic space. I want a farmer's market. Um, So I don't know.
Yep.
Is there a way to mitigate those things?
I think that first you've got to get the community to understand it, right? Because
Hmm.
you've got people who are like, I want 8 Starbucks. Let's do it because that means we're coming up in the neighborhood, right? But I think we've got to have the conversations of what it means to assign value without making something a commodity,
Hmm.
right? That as a community, there's a value to having these things, but it's not just about like, oh, did property values rise, and now is if I'm a homeowner, did I just benefit in that manner? It's like, no, there's a lot you benefit as a community without adding a dollar sign to it if you bring those kind of spaces and things, right?
Hmm.
But legally, that's what we're trying to figure out is how do you make it so I guess this is kind of hip hop in thinking about it, right? It's like when you make something dope and people want to like check it out and come see it, cool, that's one thing. But you also got to set ground rules. And for us, those ground rules are affordability.
Hmm.
That if you're doing storefronts, they should be affordable. If you're doing housing, how much affordable can you get? Because we want to lock some of that in. Like you're talking 20, 30 years of affordability. So even as things get nicer, people still have places they can go and not feel like they've got to like scrounge and save just to have a roof over their head, which nobody wants people to be under.
Absolutely. And I'll say too, my husband and I bought the condo where I'm speaking to you from, and we do hope the property value goes up. But at the same time, one of the reasons we chose this neighborhood is because there's no primary ethnicity. And we like
Yeah.
diversity, and we like going to the grocery store and hearing different languages being spoken too. So I think that, and for many Chicagoans too, at least many of my friends, that is a shared feeling.
Yeah. I think I've been internally trying to work through terminology in my head because I think we often talk about I think the 40th ward might be the most diverse area in the city
Oh, cool.
when you look at like all different communities. Um, I've been really trying to focus on the difference between diversity and inclusivity, right? Like diversity is something you can kind of tout and say, look, it's really diverse. Inclusivity is like, hey, we're all one. And
Yeah.
so whatever I can do, whether it's through talking to folks, whether it's development that can get us to that point, I'm gonna do because I think we all benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there is a strength in that unity too, that community feeling. Um,
100%.
so again, not trying to pry, but is there anything coming up that we haven't talked about that you're excited about that you want to share with people?
Um, I think a lot of it really is the arts district. Like, there's stuff that we've been doing. I've been starting to talk to people that I know from even like my artist circles and telling them like you should come check out what we're doing here on Lincoln because we would love to have like, oh, you want to do a gallery? Come check out Lincoln Avenue. Or you want to have a podcast studio? Bring that through. You want to do a restaurant? So I think a lot of it is really that. And lately we've been having conversations with the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce. And so that's the part that I'm really excited about because I think we always talk about like, oh, we want to support Black-owned businesses and how are we going to get different folks out here. Like by talking to the chamber directly and saying, hey, why don't we do regular tours of this area? Because if folks want to come set up, this is a way to desegregate the way the city is. So I think we've got that. We've got the Catalpa East, so that's Catalpa between Ashland and Clark in Andersonville.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna try to. That's where the Black Trans Lives Matter mural was.
Yes.
Um, right there, we're trying to create a public space as well.
Oh,
So
cool.
I keep trying to find opportunities. Um, I think the last one that I'll mention because it's not fully there yet, but it's coming. I think is on Foster and Winchester.
Okay.
There's the Griffin Theater building that used to be a police building, a
Okay.
police department. Where I'm thinking about figuring out a way to get a mural on there.
Oh.
Yeah, and like trying to get messages across that way where it doesn't have to be like out in your face. It could be through art, but there's something about where you place it that also has meaning. So there's a lot of cool stuff that we're looking at.
Absolutely. I mean, I am fortunate to have gotten my first vaccine on Friday, and I was outside the United Center, and we haven't been out and about, so we don't know what's going on. But I was thinking as I was waiting to go into the tent that I had never noticed the huge Black Lives Matter mural right on the front of the United Center, and I just thought that's so beautiful and so important to be right there. And it felt, I don't know, I felt very moved in that moment too. So I love that you're thinking about things like that in this neighborhood, and I'm sure everybody appreciates it tremendously. So
Yeah, and it makes up for, unfortunately we get some of those like Proud Boy stickers and all the other stuff that like people see across. So I think being able to do something at a different scale and being like, this represents who we are and how everybody's welcome, I think is a really cool thing to do too.
absolutely, especially again, so proud to live in this neighborhood. So grateful to have you as alderman. You're fantastic. We have no qualms about anything. So I was joking with my husband that I wanted to run for alderman, but I think it was kind of like a pipe dream a couple years back, and then I was like, I don't need to. So so
But
appreciate you.
and then you can't write joint songs like you did, like the one you were playing earlier. I'm trying to make sure you got time to be able to create. So I'm glad I can help.
Yeah, definitely. And you don't I assume you don't sleep much, and I like sleeping, so there are all these different
That's real. Yeah.
Yep, yeah, and we don't have kids, and you have kids, so you've got your family and
Yeah.
everything too. So
Yeah, then
um
I would be writing too many raps right now. So I think I got to find other stuff to do. So that's fair, totally.
awesome. We're getting close to the end of the hour. Is there anything else that you want to specifically bring up or say or wrap up with that I didn't get to?
Um, yeah, the wrap up is cool. I'll even consider it pun intended, even if it wasn't intended. But I think I am trying to figure out what it means to be an artist in this role. Like I think I've done. I've had a. I was struggling with the fact that I'm like, look, if people think I'm out here just rapping all the time and not working, they're gonna give me a certain kind of like look. But I want to figure out how to make, like I was talking before, like that bridge between like hip hop and politics, or some kind of way to get that across. So I've written a couple verses here and there since I got elected, a handful. I haven't spent a lot of time on it, but I think I'm also trying to figure out like how do you do a meeting and invite hip hop people and talk about political things? Like, do you executive produce a mixtape maybe that like get stuff out? So I don't know yet,
Hmm.
and I think the more I get comfortable in being able to do the job, when we get past the pandemic, I think I'll find more opportunities to be able to express myself in that way. So I'll make sure to give you a heads up when I do.
Oh, please do. We've got
Mhm.
a little studio here too. So, one of my
Dope.
friends who is watching right now, actually, we had a conversation again last summer when things were very kind of heavy, and I kind of felt frustrated because I have some family members that I don't align with politically, and we were talking, and I said, well, "How do you change people's minds?" And she looked at me and she just went, "The only way to change people's mind is through art." And so in that way, like to really like you don't sit somebody with a different ideology down and go listen and they go okay, you know.
That's right.
And so in that way perhaps art is a public service. Like artists can be
Oh,
public servants in that way. So I hope to see when you're ready some more public service via art show up too.
yeah, yeah. I think right now what I'm trying to figure out, and I'm really glad you brought that up, is like there's federal funding for the arts, and so trying to figure out how does that funding come down to the city level? How are we supporting artists to do that? Because it is very much a public service. I think you have a way better shot getting somebody to agree or believe in something if it's through music that they like and they can nod their head to, than if they like. I've never seen anybody defensive when music is playing, right? Like they're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'll check it out, and I think that's a much better starting point for that kind of conversation. So yeah, I'm also trying to figure that out. Like, how do we, as a city, fund artists to do the things they do and be able to have a living off of it? Because we're society is immeasurably better when you've got a lot of art and culture out there and people being able to learn through other people's perspectives.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's kind of a beautiful place to wrap up. I want to say thank you so much for making the time. You are an extremely busy person. I know this. People who live out here know this. So I just want to thank you so much for your thoughts again and your time, and
Yeah,
your continued service to the community.
Sophie, thank you, and thank you for just like having this platform, for being able to share like your music and art. Like yeah, it's really cool. Just as a listener, like it was cool hearing a song that to me was every bit as like wordy, and the verse got so much out as like a hip hop record. Like hearing the what you were writing and talking social media and how we all seek attention and the likes, like yeah, it's brilliant and beautiful stuff, and I'm really glad to be able to have been a part of it today.
Thank you, thank you. I will just kind of be sitting on a cloud the rest of the day after that compliment. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
Andre thinks my music's cool. So anyway, I know you have to get back to work. Thank you again, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon, just as neighbors. So
Absolutely, yeah. If you need a pothole fix, you know where to reach out to. So I'll
sure
see.
do. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Alderman Vasquez. We appreciate
Yeah.
you. Take
Thank
care.
you. Take care, Cassandra.
Bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Well, everybody, wasn't that the most fun ever? That was such a great conversation. Yes, thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, everybody who watched today. Um, of course, you can go up to 40thward.org if you need to get community resources or you want to reach out to Alderman Vasquez. And then Alderman Vasquez is on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and always very active there as well. So feel free to be part of our community in that way. Next week, we have more shows. I don't know, I have a ton of shows lined up. I'm so grateful. Next week, singer-songwriter, LA-based musician Liz Full. She's also a dueling piano player lady. She will be on the show. We'll be talking about art. We'll be talking about songwriting. So if you got a lazy Sunday afternoon, please join us. And I'm going to keep this going until I run out of songwriters, which feels strangely impossible. Okay, y'all. Thank you again for watching. And as always, stay well, stay safe, stay kind to one another, and I will see you next Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Time.